Hi everybody, it's Dionne here, your menopause coach. Today I'm here on Conversations with Dionne with Tanya E. Hood. Now this woman has got a few titles, she has got a lot of things going on, but the reason I've chosen to bring here, I've messed up now. Hi everybody, it's Dionne here. This is Conversations with Dionne and special guests, and today I have Tanya E. Wood with me today. She's an amazing woman. People call me the sleep whisperer. When you hear this woman's voice, you're going to melt. And when she is talking, her content is so valuable, but she's like whispering and rhyming to your soul. But you're going to get to hear her, see her, experience it for yourself. But more importantly, I want to listen closely, not just to the rhythm of how she speaks, but to what she's saying. Because as a menopausal woman, we need these strategies that Tanya has to offer. And I'm so excited that she's going to be giving you an introduction into her world so that you can find out more. Welcome, Tanya. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me, Dionne. Hi, everyone.
First of all, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about what you do and why.
Well, a lot of times, a lot of people just share some insight about the various hats that they've worn. So I've had a lot of hats that I've worn in my life: a wife, a mother, entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, it simply means I've worn those hats to help provide strategy and actionable steps. But my heart and soul goes out a lot to those that are divorced, because those are the stories that I kind of share a lot if you go and find me everywhere on social media, because I provide a simple solution to give you insight about who you are at the core of your being, so that you can find the strength that you need to change your life, to have the life that you desire.
And that is one of the reasons why I brought you here, because at midlife, divorce is it's at its highest when we reach that age. And that is because women are going through menopause. Men, even though they don't know it, is going through andropause. And therefore, it's like we really are two separate islands. And therefore, we is struggling to understand our own bodies, let alone understanding it and communicating with one another and coming together as a team. So talk to us about your work as a conflict a woman that eliminates.
Let's just say reset strategies, because one of the things I do the most is provide you the opportunity to reset your life. So I don't like conflict resolution because it's got those corporate terms associated with it that nobody registers with. But when you are ready to reset your life because of the chaos that you've been through, if you're ready to reset your life because you know that emotionally, physically, and otherwise, you have got to do things different, that's where I come in. And the strategies that I provide are for...
No, please go ahead.
And the strategies I provide just give you some insight about knowing who you are, so that you can communicate that a little bit better to have the life that you desire.
And in hearing you speak at other places, I heard you kind of describe this process at this moment, at that point in time in a woman's life, as a process of birth, just how you have referred to another process as a process of death. So talk to me about why you use the terminologies.
I use the terminology because sometimes you got to go to the basics. People understand that when you are being birthed into a situation, it's new, it's fresh. You usually enter those moments with an open mind. When you are going through resetting your life from the chaos you may have had, you have got to open yourself up to new thoughts, new activities, new visions, new dreams. And when you do that, it gives you the chance to tap into who you are at the core of your being and use that as a strength to get into your next position.
And would the death process be when they hit rupture and they are heading towards divorce, or you've started working with the woman because she is recently divorced? With that bottom, is that the death process?
That's a death process. When we go through a divorce, people don't often pay attention to the fact that when you separate your soul from anything, it's death. Death is just simply separation. A divorce, separation, someone physically died, separation. But the emotional components that happen in your mind are the same. You go through what people often call the levels of grief. But when I say the death piece, you're clear what that means. It's done. And for some individuals, when you are coming out of your divorce, you need to be clear that it's done. Because if you do not, you will then resurrect some things that may not need to be resurrected. And that can cause you more angst, more trauma, more drama. We don't want that.
I'm just laughing at the word resurrection. You know, we've gone talking about birth to go into death, and you bring it all in, resurrection. I'm telling you, people, this woman is hot. She's just hot. So talk to me about your title as an organizational assessment coach, because as a woman in menopause and she's balancing children and she's balancing elderly parents and she's trying to hold it together at home, in her social life, with her friends, with her partner, and professionally, organization, when one is suffering from brain fog and we can't remember why we left the bathroom tap on and what we were meant to be doing, why we're standing in the kitchen when the bath tap is still running. Talk to me about organization and the strategies that you use to help a woman organize her life so that it's no longer chaos up here, but also practically chaos.
So as an organizational assessment coach, that terminology is me walking through how you can function in your world, both personally and professionally. It does not necessarily mean that you're organizing the things that's in your house, like putting the cupboard together in a more clear perspective. But it does mean that you're taking the time to get clarity about who you are. Who are you at your values? Who are you at your core? Have you ever taken the time to truly know what you bring to the table? I provide an assessment, which is why it's organizational assessment, that gives you insight about your core strengths. When you're aware of it, you know how you behave when things are going well and when you enter into conflict, because conflict will happen. And I want to say this about conflict. Conflict is just something that occurs when your values are tapped into. It's not a disagreement. It's not an argument. You can be disagreeable. I mean, you can have a disagreement without being disagreeable, and you can have a disagreement without it being conflict. But the conflict comes when, let's say, as a person that is loving, supportive, caring, and giving, when someone makes you feel like you are not those things or tries to debate and give you the perception that being those things, that element, that characteristic of your being is wrong, oh, now you're in conflict. And then what I do is share with you 3 levels of how to get out of it. I call it the conflict sequence because we all have it. We just aren't always aware of it. And that's part of what I teach, share, and show.
So we all have a way of getting ourselves into conflict, and you can guide us through your assessment and your strategies to learn about these ways that we get into conflict, our conflict character traits, so to speak. And in which one of your books, because I know you've been an author of quite a few books, so in which one of your books can a woman guide herself into learning about her conflict strategies, her weaknesses and her strengths, and how to get herself out of those sticky situations so that she can have better relationships with others as well as herself?
Well, I'm glad you have mentioned that because the book that contains that information won't be out until the end of this year. So let me share with you all a little bit. I am the author of my premier book, Red Alert, Is He the One? The Pocket Guide to Finding the Love of Your Life. I wrote that book as a reset strategy to get through my divorce. It's an autopsy on my divorce. And I walk through what I needed to do initially to be better as Tanya, so that I could have had a better relationship. And I used the insight that I put in that book, and that book is now in a course. It is also turned into my own podcast. And what I share inside of that information is how you can get more clarity about yourself so that you can get into a better position. It does not just have to be about getting married again, but if you want to, that can happen as well, because I'm in my second marriage. And in this marriage, using those strategies, it's been a blessing.
So you've gone on to talking about the book that I was going to mention later on, your first book, Red
Alert.
Alert Diaries. And what I wanted to ask you about Red Alert Diaries is, and as well, the book that you're writing now about Is He the One? When would you suggest a woman reads Is He the One? Do you think it's a good idea for her to address her marriage before divorce by reading Is He the One when it is published, before making that decision to actually make this one of her death processes?
So there's two things. The premier book is called Red Alert, Is He the One? And it's titled Is He the One because lots of times when women are reading, you're reading to find out, is it about a man? It's not about a man. The book is about discovering who you are. So you can start that reading at any time you desire. I often share, do it beforehand, because when I wrote the book, I wrote it for my goddaughters because they were at the beginning of their relationships, and I did not want them to walk on the landmines I had already crossed. So when they read that book, it gives you clarity about who you are. And it's in three elements. The first three chapters, actually, chapters 1, 2, and 3, gives you more insight about how to have a better relationship with yourself. Chapters 4, 5, and 6 give you insight about how to have a better relationship with others. And then chapter 7 all by itself is an entire journey about how to have a better relationship with the being greater than yourself. Because it was Jesus that got me up off the bathroom floor of that 2-bedroom apartment that I found myself in after my divorce. That is when I discovered the death. Then I got the rebirth, and the rebirth helped me birth the book. The birthing of the book birthed the podcast called Red Alert Diaries. And from all of those elements, you get something that you can take away at any point that you desire.
I do have a question about chapter 7.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you about your relationship with your faith, because it's very clear, to me anyway, that it's a really good relationship that you have there by the way that you talk. And I wanted to ask about, because I know you work with so many different people. So when you're working with someone that does not have a relationship with a higher being, how does that look like? How do you manage to work with them? And what are the benefits that you teach them about letting a higher being into their life so that they can guide them through the struggle that they're on?
I often say that you don't have to believe in the God that I serve, but if you do, the journey on this side is more beneficial for you. You cannot get through life with the same thinking that you've been doing. You have to have a thought that is greater than yourself, and that means tapping into a being. And for me, with Jesus as my guide, I am clear that He is Alpha and Omega. So I have a God that knows the beginning of my world. He knew me before I was formed in my mother's womb. I learned that by reading what He wrote inside of the basic instruction book that He gave me before leaving Earth. A lot of people call it the Bible, but my grandmother gave me that acronym. So I love that acronym because when people think about the Bible and think about religion, I want you to know God does not like religion. God wants you to be in relationship with Him. And when He picked me up off the bathroom floor of that 2-bedroom apartment, that's when I discovered that God was about relationship and not religion. That's when I discovered that the Bible is an instruction book, a strategy guide. It gives you insight about how you can move through whatever you are encountering. I had to get a thought that was greater than me. And in that book, God says, my thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways are not your ways. I needed someone that did not have my thoughts of chaos that got me into a first marriage at 21 that ended up going sideways and leaving me balled up in the fetal position. That is what I share inside of chapter 7, how I began that relationship, because it was God that showed me that it was love. Love that I was designed in, love that I was dipped in, love that only He can give me. And when I recognize that that love already resides in the seat of my soul, I don't need another person to do that for me. That is where I began to get the rebirth, of Tanya. And the journey that I'm on meant that loving me would invite others in to be a complement. That's chapter 6. So if you're complimentary to my journey, I'm still whole when you leave. If you're complimentary to my journey, I'm still whole if you decide to be present or not. It's the love of me, which is why Red Alert was written. And chapter 7 shows you how to seal that relationship. But Jesus is the one that showed me that journey, because I've had a religious roller coaster ride. I've been a Mormon, a Baptist, a Scientologist, an Egyptologist. I've gone through so many various things, looked at so many different tenets of religion, discovered astrology and gone through looking at crystals and a whole lot of things. And at the end of the day, at the end of all of that, elements of them all pointed back to the Bible. So if every religious element on the planet seems to point back to this one book, then let me get my instructions from the basic instructions that are given there, and let God fill in the holes for my life, because he knows the beginning and the end. And that's where I'm trying to go.
So what I got from that is your story being the inspiration of what will happen if they let a higher being or higher source help them on their death and birth process through their struggle. And that's it's not simple. It wasn't simple. It was hard at that time in that that 2-bedroom apartment that you were in. But your story is so inspirational. Hearing and working with you and seeing it as they're working with you, they can't help but be motivated to let source guide them. They can't help, by hearing your story, be inspired by your story for them to open up and let source guide them, right?
Exactly.
And then that foundation piece, that confidence piece that you just spoke about, I heard and I saw it as all the other chapters before chapter 7 were like laying the foundations of you making yourself so whole that it doesn't matter whether people come and go, your wholeness will still be there. And that's what you want for all women, right?
Exactly. And that's what the premier book gives you. Now, that book you can use and read. It's a 2-hour read. But if you want to take it in time, I share that it's a 90-day journey, going deeper into the first 3 chapters so that you know you. Looking at chapters 4, 5, and 6 if you want to get more clarity of others, because here's the thing that Jesus gave us. And the cross is a clear representation, which is why I know he was the one that I needed to get me up off the bathroom floor. The cross is vertical and horizontal. The vertical element is the element of you and your being with a higher power. So with my vertical element touching to who God is, I'm clear, I'm whole. It's also the longest part of the cross. And then you have the vertical bar. That bar is stretching from me to you. That bar is how I'm able to connect with you across the seas. That bar is the relationship with others. What keeps you there is chapter 7. That's the higher being, the love that God has that engulfs the cross, because it wasn't the nails that kept him there. It was love that kept Jesus on the cross. And that's what we're all looking for.
So talking about love and your love of words and your love of writing, going back to the book that you're working on at the moment, which is called Is He the One, the workbook. What inspired you to write that?
That workbook was inspired when someone called me from the information in the back of the premiere book. So this lady called me and was like, I'm you, you're me. I'm the one sitting on the bed. And I'm like, what? So the red alert, Is He the One? It's a journey about how I got to where I am. So there's elements of my life story in there. So if you want to know a snippet about me, it's inside that book. And when she called me, I recognized where she was, because when I was sitting on the edge of the bed, it was then that I asked God, are you real? Because I was raised in a household that lets me know that there is a God, but he wasn't personal. You see, it's difficult to join anyone on a journey if you don't know them. And I did not have a personal relationship with God at that time. So it was there at the edge of the bed that I said, Lord, if you're real, you're going to have to show me, because I'm about to be homeless. I have no food to feed my kids, and I don't know what else I'm going to do in my life because there's nobody else here to help me. So when she asked me more questions about how I got past the edge of the bed, the workbook was birthed. So there is the accompanying workbook that you can get as a bundle from my website, tanyaehood.com. Those two together give you a strategy to go deeper into the relationship with yourself, the relationship with others, relationship with being greater than yourself. And using the premier book is just a guide of my journey if you just need to connect some dots along the way. But that's how the workbook was birthed. And it's there to be a strengthening guide. Because of that, when people did get the workbook, I end up starting the course called Navigating Life After Divorce. And the subset of that course is called Eliminating Conflict Quickly, that I now share with others as well.
And you can also get that from your website, tanyaewood.com. Is that right?
Yep. Go to tanyaehood.com. And there, click under the Work With Me tab, and you can see the various ways that we can work with one another.
And I know you also run masterclasses that are really practical, really functional in reference to understanding one's conflict style and how to get out of that, and also how to organize themselves. Tell us about these masterclasses, please, before we go.
So I structure that in 3 separate focus areas to make it really easy for you. Focus on people, focus on process, focus on performance, because we contain all 3. And how you show up when things are going well looks way different than how you show up when you're in conflict. But those 3 focus areas make it easy for you to be able to recognize that. So if you're focused on people, you're looking at how to be supportive, caring, and giving. If you're focused on process, you're a little more structured and organized and analytical. If you're focused on performance, then you're looking for the metric, you're looking for the goal. You're somebody that's very action-oriented. When you enter into conflict, those things are strengths, but they don't feel like it when you're in conflict. So I walk through the 3 levels of your conflict sequence. The first level, where you still can sort of see what's going on around you, because as you go deeper into conflict, it narrows your vision. You're no longer analytical if you are in conflict in some spaces. But if conflict resolution is part of where you're trying to get to, and you're usually a process-oriented person, you're already thinking of a plan. You're already thinking of a process. So your level 1 may still continue that analysis. When I give you the assessment, I give you clarity about if that's what you're doing. If you're a person that's performance-oriented, you know that you want to meet the goal and get where you're going, but your action-oriented strength can seem overbearing and embarrassing to others because you sound like you're trying to take over the room. I need you to know how to use your strength still while you're walking through that phase. So if you're in level 1 and you start being a little more aggressive because you're trying to get your point across, I give you tips and tools about how to effectively communicate your needs, your desires. And that really is supportive for those people that are focused on people, because your supportive nature makes you accommodating. While you're accommodating everybody else, you're giving more than you need to give, longer than you want to give it. And then you feel like you aren't being filled up because everybody's pulling on you. The tools that I give in the 6-week course gives you insight about what to say to others so that you're supported, how to listen when other people are going through their conflict sequence, so you get a window into their motives and values to make your life better, their life better, and then you're harmonizing better, which is how you get out of conflict quickly.
And when you hold these masterclasses, can they also find that information on your website as well?
Exactly. You can go to my website. When you click under the Work With Me tab, you'll see a session there that's called Eliminating Conflict Quickly. That is a session that's sort of my life e-course, and I fluctuate what it is. But if all else fails, always go to the Contact Me tab. When you go into Contact Us, you can just send me information and I'll let you know when we can just have a conversation together, and I'll let you see where you fit in best, and we'll go from there.
And that's all over at Tanya E.
Everything.
That's all at Tanya E. Wood. Sorry, that's all at tanyaehood.com.
Exactly. I try to make things simple. One of the things I often do as a reset strategist is simplify things. You can find everything about me in one place: social media, how to contact me, and the podcast, Red Alert Diaries.
So before we sign off today, I just want to ask you one last question, which is there a question that I haven't asked that you wished I had asked you today?
I wish you had asked me more about how to be strengthened while you're going through the mess. Because we can be so overwhelmed with what's happening with us, we don't even know how to figure out our strengths. When you're going through the mess, I want you to do this. Write down the things that you know to be true about you. If nobody else recognizes who you are, you need to know who you are. So write down what you know to be true. And if you are having difficulty coming up with those words, ask people to give you one word that comes to mind when they think about you. That will give you the beginning steps. But before anything happens in your world so that you can get whole, you need to know how amazing you are at the core of your being, because you were designed to be someone's answered prayer and to give something for this world to have that maximizes and makes their world better.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I'm sure many people are going to be reaching out to you. You have an amazing energy, a beautiful presence, a voice that's like silk, and wisdom that can really, really move and pick up and then move the needle in a woman's life, in a person's life. So whoever's watching this, don't be afraid to reach out to Tanya E. Hood. And sorry for my pronunciation. As you know, I get a little tongue-tied with my long tongue. And we shall see you again soon at Conversations with Dionne and special guests. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tanya.